I should tell you, to stress the middle-class nature of this population, 74% of the people had been to college. Basically, this is you and me, which probably has a lot to do with why it's discomforting, and why, although the ACE study has attracted intense intellectual interest, it has attracted thus far virtually no engagement. There is a prospective component to the study. We're following this group of people forward in time to match what happened way back here against current pharmacy utilization, ER visits, doctor office visits, hospitalization, and death. We've just passed the 12-year mark in the prospective arm of the study, so we're looking at these things and matching them up with what happened 50 to 60 years earlier. In essence, we're asking how you get from here to here, how you get from a newborn infant with extraordinary potential to the man who, I suppose, lives in Canada, the guy standing on the street corner with the cardboard sign around his neck. We picked 10 categories of adverse childhood experience simply empirically because of their high prevalence in the obesity program. 3 categories of abuse, 2 of neglect, and 5 of major household dysfunction. Recurrent, heavy-duty emotional abuse, basically recurrent humiliation. 1 in 9 people in this very middle-class population. Heavy-duty physical abuse, I don't mean spanking, I mean beating. 1 in 4 people. Contact sexual abuse, 28% for women, 16% for men, average for the population 22%. Major emotional neglect, 15%, major physical neglect, 10%. Growing up in a home during the first 18 years of your life where one of the members of that household was either an alcoholic or a drug user. Growing up in the first 18 years of life without both biological parents in the house. What we saw there was interesting, that if you're going to lose a biological parent in childhood or adolescence, probably the best way is going to be by death, unless that death is a suicide. Because that at least offers the potential of a protective mythology. You know, my mother would have cared for me if, my father would have protected me if. And clearly the worst way was by abandonment, which most commonly was code for divorce. Growing up in a home where one of the members of that household was chronically depressed, mentally ill, suicidal, or in the state hospital, 17%. Growing up in a home where mother was treated violently, 1 in 8 people. Growing up in a home where one of the members of that household was imprisoned during your childhood or adolescence, 1 in 16 people. That surprised us, all of it. Of course, there are certain things that nice people don't ask, and hence never know. We were dealing with enormous amounts of information from these 17,500 people, each of whom was going through a very comprehensive medical evaluation. Every single person had pulmonary function testing done. Everyone had intraocular pressure measured for glaucoma, et cetera, et cetera. So we decided to create something called an ACE score, the number of categories of adverse childhood experience to which one was exposed. If you're exposed to none of those 10 categories, then the score was 0. If you're exposed to any 3, it was 3. To any 6, it was 6, etc. We did not score within a category. So if you grew up, say, with 2 alcoholics in the house, or an alcoholic or a drug user, that was simply 1 point for the category. If you were molested multiple times by multiple people, that was simply 1 point for the category. So obviously, if you think about it, if anything, that understates the relationships that we'll describe. 2 out of 3 people experienced at least one category of adverse childhood experience. Women were 50% more likely than men to have an ACE score of greater than 5. And we saw that if any category was present, that there was an 87% chance that there was at least one other category present, and a 50% chance of 3 or more other categories. So any physician each day is going to be seeing 2 or 3 patients with an ACE score of 5 or higher. And the question is, who are they going to be? I'll tell you what we found first and then show you the evidence. The adverse childhood experiences are very common, but largely unrecognized. And when recognized, often denied. They're in fact the basis for much of adult medicine and of many common public health problems, that they are strong predictors of social functioning, well-being, so-called health risks, disease and death, that they're complexly interrelated, not solitary, and that combination makes them the leading determinant of the health and well-being of the country. And I will say again that although the ACE study has attracted intense intellectual interest literally around the world, or at least in the Northern Hemisphere, it has in 10 years yet to produce any serious engagement. It's an interesting man. This guy's got a lot to say.
It wasn't that I ate because I was hungry. You know, it was, when I look at it, it was just a place for me to feel safe. As a child, I remember there was a point, I would probably say, all the way from kindergarten to, God, I don't know what grade, but I used to get beat up all the time. All the time. And when I got the weight on, didn't happen.
The point that I want you to take out of that is this man has just lost 158 pounds in our weight program. That's not the important thing. The important thing is the question, why did he ever gain it in the first place? And he's talking about the benefits of obesity that he detected as a child. That concept that certain problems actually have hidden benefits, that's kind of hard for many people to accept. So I want you to hear it firsthand from this man. Here's someone else. This is an interesting guy. He's a very bright man. It would be fair to describe him as a semi-pro saloon fighter. He speaks eloquently and intelligently about the basis of what we would call addiction and the underpinnings of 3 common health risks: heavy smoking, heavy drinking, and drug use. Here's the story. When he was 3, his parents divorced. His mother remarried when he was 5. For whatever reason, his stepfather saw fit to beat him pretty much every day. I remember him telling me once he recalled that at age 8, walking off the porch to go down the stairs to school, the thought crossed his mind, nobody is ever going to be there for me in my lifetime. When he was 20, he was imprisoned in Rhode Island for attempted murder. Ultimately, he got out. He's a responsible citizen, works as a high-voltage electrician on major construction projects that keep him away from home most of the year. He very responsibly sends his significant paycheck home to his third wife. He's the kind of man that would work up in the oil sands in Alberta